are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks for inviting me, Paul.
Yeah, thanks for spending some time with us this afternoon. Before we jump into some questions, can you just give us a quick overview of Acre?
You bet. Happy to. So Acre is a group of businesses that were pulled together by industry leader Joe Grillo, who's got a really strong background that everybody knows from the HID days. And he started the company, and it actually stands for Access Control Related Enterprises. And he brought together businesses like some of the access control from Ingersoll Rand and Siemens, ACT over here in Europe, and also has a strong video presence with the ComNet brand. We go to market specifically under Vanderbilt on the access and intrusion side of the business, and ComNet from a video perspective. And we have locations all around the world, including Germany, Dublin, and in Connecticut are our main centers for operation.
Okay, great. And today's topic, we're going to look at access control, the future of access control, and just give everyone a heads up who's listening. If you don't know already, Ron wrote a great article on this topic recently, so go and check that out. There's some real good insights in there on the future of access control, which we're going to get into today. We'll look at how mobile credentials fit into the overall scope of the security industry, and obviously the direction, maybe some roadblocks. So let's start, Ron. Where are we now with regards to electronic access control, as opposed to, let's say, 5-10 years ago?
Well, I think the market is starting to recognize and adopt new technology a little bit faster than what they have in the past. I think we're getting more and more used to the digital world out there, and with Amazon and Google coming into our homes with a lot of different things that are automating how we shop, all those different things. It's really opening up our expectations when we move into the commercial space of what is acceptable today that might not have been acceptable in the past. And I think, mobile credentialing is one of those things that really illustrates this. Technology wasn't where it needed to be to make this effective just a few years ago. Today we're there. And, I think another unique aspect of what we're dealing with this change in technology is that it's really starting in the broader residential space and moving its way upwards into the commercial and then enterprise space. So I think this is a pretty unique transition for us, those of us that have been in the security industry for a longer period of time. I think we're still getting used to the speed of the change that we have to be able to manage. It used to be you'd put a system in and just keep adding on to it year after year after year. I think that model is going to end up changing, particularly as we're looking at new companies and new installations.
Yeah, and you mentioned the influence of the residential side of things. How has access control industry changed? And what is the main catalyst for this change? Is it there's some other factors in there, obviously.
Yeah, I just think that our expectations, because if you can do things at home in such an automated fashion, you expect to be able to do those when you go to your workplace. And when you go into a workplace with, the next generation of employees that are coming in, they just have different expectations. The old key card or just an electronic key isn't what they're expecting, with normal credentialing that we're used to doing with the badge and hard keys. Why can't I use my mobile device to do this? And by the way, if something does happen with the system, is there a way that we can go in there and recognize and use this to protect more? Something happened to my car in the parking lot. Did you guys really know that I was in the building when mustering needed to happen because of an alarm situation? I think everyone's expectations are just being more and more painted by, this is what I can do in my house. You know, how are you guys making this transition happen into the commercial space? And I also think that, you know, the movies and TVs and things like that are driving a lot of this as well. We just have higher expectations on convenience factors. And, you know, in the article, I tried to use the Star Trek example of, why do you have to do something? Why do you have to wave your credential in front of a reader? Why doesn't the reader just know that I'm here? And, you know, I think that's where we're getting to, which is, you know, Jean-Luc Picard, they knew, you know, where he had access and when he was coming, and the door knew to open for him. And I think that's exactly the direction that we're going in.
Yeah, and then that brings me to my next question. What direction do you think, you know, it's taking now with the new technology? I mean, you have mobile access, you have biometrics, you know, near field, you know, technology. Can you, where are we headed? What's the most practical and what makes the most sense?
Well, I think that biometrics is also a really progressing technology that we can't overlook. And I think for, you know, really high tech or really high security applications, that we're going to want to have some level of biometrics in there. I think for larger corporations and implementing and managing all the different requirements for biometrics gets to be a little bit trickier. And so I think in the small to mid-size access control space, I think the first, you know, application is going to be the mobile credential, which, you know, up until just recently has been a little bit cumbersome to use. You know, you still have to download an app, you still have to go into that application, you have to pick what door you want to go into, you have to pick that door, tap on it. You know, I think that's part of the reasons why there's been a little bit slower adoption of that in like the hospitality marketplace, even though there's been some pretty strong progress in that area with a couple of really good forward-looking companies that are out there doing this. You know, the adoption has just been a little bit slower because it hasn't been easier than just using the traditional key card. But everyone's expectation is, you know, how can I do this? How can you make this more convenient for us? And I think it's up to us as industry leaders and manufacturers and installers and resellers to figure out how to bring these expectations into the security space.
Yeah, and you're right about that. So how are we going to overcome some of these challenges to mobile credentials, you know, to be more widely adopted? Do you ever see a day where we're, you know, all mobile credentials, or is that just not possible?
Well, I think that eventually we'll get there, but, you know, you have hurdles about, you know, the whole bring your own device. I think that there's a certain, you know, there's large customers out there that do a lot of e-retail, that go through a lot of cards and hire a lot of people on a regular basis during holiday times. And it's just not practical for them necessarily to be pushing credentials down to tens of thousands of workers every single day. I think that, you know, they want to prepare these badges and you know, it's employee 1, 2 through 10,000. Those sorts of applications, it's going to be a little bit more difficult. I also think that when you have an ID, a picture ID in larger companies and higher secure required areas, you want to make sure that that person belongs in that space. You know, if you think about the airports and those kind of things, you want to see that they have another credential besides just, you know, the ability to get in and out of a door conveniently. And so that level is going to, you know, it could be that you have both in some of those applications, because you still have that requirement to say this person is who I'm seeing today. And, you know, in a smaller company, again, that's why I said the focus on where this technology is going to start is in the smaller to mid-size businesses. I think our focus should be on, the new applications, the ones that are first coming in for their first, 4 to 40 door application, that they look at just going directly to this technology, because everybody in the building. You're a startup, you're a smaller company. If you're in retail and you have certain areas that need to be controlled, I think that the mobile credentialing works in that aspect as well. I think we as a business, we always tend to want to go and solve for the large equation. We want to go out there and capture the buildings with 10,000 employees and 300 doors and a bunch of cameras and all those applications. It's going to be a lot harder for them to migrate to the mobile application. And I think in those applications like that might be where biometrics is a better solution for them to start with, if they really have a higher security requirement in specific areas. So if you think about hospitals, labs, that they only want to have certain people to have entrance into, the pharmaceutical areas within hospitals, I think that's biometrics is a better solution in those areas.
Well, that's interesting. So let's get a little bit deeper into where the demand is coming from for electronic and wireless access control, and maybe where you see the biggest growth areas, maybe the best potential. I know you mentioned some areas like retail, but can we get a little deeper into where you see the most demand coming, first adopters, so to speak?
Yeah, well, I mean, selfishly, I think that we've got a really good product on the market here with Vanderbilt, which is targeted into that small to mid-market area, a web-based product. I think it's convenient for smaller applications. For I'd like to be able to work with angel venture capital funds and understand everybody that they're funding and go sell them their access control solution right out the gate, right? I mean, partner with my channel to go and tackle things like that. I think it gets to be, those of us that have been in the access control space, we like the fact once we have a customer that we pretty much get to keep the customer, because it's painful to switch. And so I think to get this adoption really off the ground, you have to target that smaller market and get more and more folks on that. They don't have the investment already in the infrastructure. They're more likely to want to be in a software as a service model. They don't have to have all the IT infrastructure and things that traditional access control companies have required in the past. So I think that's the sweet spot to go after. And mom and pop, smaller retail locations, smaller businesses, the local plumbing shops. I think that all of those are where we need to be focused and get them into access control rather than having traditional locks. So that's kind of where I think the focus needs to be to really get this growing. That being said, I also think that when you have existing customers in place and you have the new millennials coming forward, their expectations on what they expect from a company, what they want their technology to do, they always have their cell phone with them. If you go out and just observe anyone under 30, and if they're with a group of 4 friends, 10 friends, I mean, you walk by and they're all using their mobile device. I think that as the older folks like us start phasing out of the workforce, that you're going to see more and more demand for this. So I think when we're going out and talking to customers and we're trying to bring value to them as an integrator or as an installer, we absolutely should be talking about, here's the next generation of things that we can do. Here, as you're adding new readers in, let's make sure that you have the ability to use mobile credentials within those readers. and here's the additional opportunities that we can do for you with this. You can relook at what your pricing model is. So instead of just selling the reader, you can lease the reader along with the credentials. How do we approach this a little bit differently than the old traditional that we've been doing? And how can you use the data when you know that the access controlled on a mobile, or the access happened on a mobile device? It gives you, real-time notification of where these people are going. And, the next layer of security also happens because, with every cellular device, you can't just pick up somebody else's device and make it work for you. It's, that the old, you have to have something, the cellular device, and know something, how to access that device. So, whether it's facial recognition with the new Apple or the touch recognition that the other devices have, I think there's a real opportunity for us to move the ball forward as security professionals. And, at the end of the day, we all want to go back to our customers and offer them better, more secure solutions. And I think that this is one of them out there.
Yeah, and I would think for, integrators and dealers looking at this opportunity, there's a chance here to also kind of future-proof a facility. So, maybe there's a path or, a plan to upgrade eventually. Do you see that happening, kind of easing the process along a little bit?
Absolutely, and I think that's up to the multiple manufacturers that are out there too, and come up with retrofit solutions so that you can use the existing hardware and start to move people into that technology. As I've been looking at this for the past few years, there's a question about how many doors really need to have the ability to have the mobile credentialing on there, or how many doors need to have the biometrics on there. But again, I think that we're on this tipping point where the other thing that the industry has been trying to solve for the past 20 years is the internal door discussion. And so right now, access control has always been focused on the external doors, and that's been a nice marketplace. If you can go in there and tackle the internal doors, a lot more opportunity there. And you can see by some of the acquisitions that some of the lock manufacturers have been making, I think that they're thinking ahead to that, how to take that on, because the magic that's in the external doors all of a sudden can be translated into the internal doors. And how do you make that work? And again, back to the Star Trek piece, Jean-Luc walks onto the starship, but he knows he can go there, but it also knows that he can enter into his bedroom, that he can enter into the bridge. I think there's probably a biometric solution there when he, wants to do something else, put it in warp drive or attack somebody. I mean, so it sounds kind of corny on one hand, but that's definitely where we're going from a technology standpoint. And I think that it actually helps to have an example like that so that people can understand, yeah, these are the different areas where I can put this neat new technology, and here's the benefits that it's going to bring for me. And I think, those of us in the security space, we definitely want to have more options to sell to our customers when we get out there. And I think, the internal doors with mobile credential is going to be a big one. And if you think higher education, you start with the students that all have this. Instead of issuing out new badges every semester, who's paid their bills, who's supposed to be in the different dormitories, who's supposed to be in the certain labs. All of that can be managed with that phone, and you carry it to the next level where you have, unfortunately, need to have lockdown and those different pieces. It's nice to know where people are and a lot of different technologies are out there trying to solve this with location services and mass notification. But I would argue that you can use all of those different pieces are just add-ons to your existing access control and how you're managing egress and where people are allowed to go and not go. So I'm a firm believer that access control is the starting point for all of these. I know that there's been another shift in the industry that says that, you know, video is king. I think that human nature is focused on the lock and making sure that the door is locked behind me and I feel secure before I care about who's outside the door. Let me lock it first, and then I want to know what happened. So.
All right, great. Well, that was our 20 minutes is up. So, Ron, thank you very much. It's been a great talking with you. A very interesting topic. We could go on for hours on this one. So, thank you.
All right. Thank you for having me.
All right, everyone. That's it for this week, and tune in next week. Thank you, everybody.